Mississaugas that they would like to gracefully decline the invitation to be here today. And I said, we refuse, we refuse, we insist.
Meeting to order, if I may. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We'll start today's board meeting with the land acknowledgement. Traditionally, Toronto was a gathering place for many nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. I acknowledge we're meeting in the area covered by Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, and I pay my respects to the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today's agenda is going to include updates on on-time performance, fare protection, customer satisfaction, and capital project deliveries. Before we start the meeting, Matt Clark, the Chief Capital Officer, will lead our safety briefing, and our CEO, Phil Verster, will follow immediately after with the CEO report. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So safety is paramount to everything we do here at Metrolink. So in line with our normal procedure, we'll run through a quick safety briefing, appoint safety roles, and start off with a quick run through of a safety moment. So in the event of emergency, Albert Taylor will dial 911. Heather Platt will be responsible for escorting emergency services. Our designated first aider today is Mark Child, sitting in the front row here, putting his hand up. If an emergency alarm does go off, and it resembles a slow bell, stay in place, stay calm, and await further instructions. If the alarm is fast and loud, we will evacuate. The evacuation procedures will commence. We will leave the meeting area, down the stairs, outside the lifts, across the road, across Front Street, and the assembly point is on the corner of Front Street and York Street, which is outside Benny Islanders. The first aid kit, AED, automated external defibrillator, and fire extinguishers are located in the kitchen outside the boardroom. And due to the number of people in the room, we won't do a roll call, but if everyone can look to their left and their right, identify the person sitting next to them and make sure they are safely exited in the event of emergency, that will be very helpful. So, from a safety moment point of view, I just wanted to take the opportunity to give a little bit of an update about one initiative that we're rolling out at Metrolink to start driving safety change throughout the industry. So, last Friday, Friday the 10th of May, we held our first safety, health, environmental leadership team meeting, our first SHELT, which was led by Phil Verster, our CEO, and involved 28 CEOs and presidents of major construction companies from outside, from Ontario and from Canada. several robust discussions through the course of the meeting around rewarding safety excellence, maintaining our pipeline of talent through the huge pipeline of work that we're about to deliver, and also how we drive change in safety culture and safety behaviours through the industry. So it's our strong belief and our strong hope that through initiatives like this we'll improve not just safety performance of Metrolinx projects and the projects that we're currently delivering and are looking to deliver in the years coming up, but change the safety culture throughout the industry and through Ontario and through Canada. So very strong initiative there being rolled out, and we've got very high expectations. On the subject of safety behaviours, a little bit closer to home, the weather's starting to change now. There's going to be a lot more work around the house and around the yard, and it's very important that we take the same safety ethos and the same safety ethic that we're trying to drive through our workforce and our supply chain when we carry out work around the house, and that's make sure you're using the right tools for the job. If you're using ladders, make sure they're the right ladders, they're fit for purpose, they're the right length. If you're using power tools, make sure they're checked and certificated. Make sure you're competent in what you're doing, and make sure you're really using the right clothes and wearing the right clothes. It's amazing how often safety professionals and construction professionals who talk about safety day in, day out go home and then cut the grass in a pair of sandals or something like that. So it's very key that we take the same safety ethos we're trying to apply through our workforce while we're at home. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Matt. We're about a month and a half into the new financial year, and looking back at 2018, we've reached a couple of landmark achievements, which I would like to just share with this meeting. In terms of the financials, which is what drives every business, our percent above budget at around $690 million. Our total costs were about 52 million less, which is a 4.6% betterment than our cost target, which gives us a 52.3 million benefit in terms of cost. I think it's really crucial that in the year where we've grown services very significantly by around 24% from September 2017 to September 2018, and then further into the rest of the financial year up to March 2019, that we can still increase our performance and deliver it within the financial envelope that we have planned to achieve. Presto adoption rate has peaked and is still going strong, but has peaked at a level where we're about 5 percentage points above where we expected to be at 65% adoption, which is very exciting. Having moved a significant number of the larger products that Presto offers into use for TTC clients has been a great experience. This mirrors the TTC and general Presto approval rating from our Presto customers of 80%, and that customer satisfaction level is one which we're very proud of and continue to want to build on going forward. In the year, our ridership grew by 3.8 million to 76.2 million, and that is around 2.9% higher than what we had budgeted for. And we're well on track to achieve our 80 million ridership by 2020 target by the end of this year. And for that, we put a cross-organizational agile team together, which are doing everything from looking at innovative service changes, marketing techniques, and what we do with first mile, last mile solutions to get people to and from our railway. I'm also happy to report that since the start of the business year, we've continued to introduce new services. We've obviously learned great lessons from what happened in January with the Brampton services, but we have relentlessly kept our focus on understanding what customers want and delivering services that customers benefit from greatly. And one of the demands that we've had on the Lakeshore East was to introduce a new service train that runs express on large parts of the route and service Oshawa, Whitby, Ajax, and Pickering. And we've introduced that in the morning peak hour as well as the evening peak hour. And another train that was a 10-car, we've moved to a 12-car. which helps with the capacity. And because of that peak hour being in that very narrow part of the day, in the morning and afternoon, an extra train there is actually very, very useful and has had a very positive response. We've also implemented what I would call big stroke fare changes during this year. Our reduction of the base fare to $3.70 is a very, very big and very, very important step towards fare integration, and it's a very big step towards encouraging shorter journeys, and shorter journeys is really, really important for us. And making shorter journeys appealing to people and to what I call the latent demand, people that aren't using Go as often today, is a big step forward and will become part of how we increase ridership in the years to come. We also held our second regional Ask Metrolinx or public town hall session. We're very positive about transparency and taking our SMT out to the region, meeting with people in the communities and answering questions firsthand and asking questions about what works and what doesn't work. The meeting that we had in Whitby was very well attended, huge number of people in the room, fantastic questions, and we still maintained the online presence, online questions and dial-in of questions by people that couldn't attend from remote and therefore have that remote access still, and that just keeps on giving us opportunities to talk to communities directly. Very importantly, in end of April, we published our updated business case guidance. That sounds like a dreary comment to make, but these business case guidance documents are really important in the sense that business cases are crucial to how we advise and how we share information about decisions that we make and decisions we advise government on in terms of how to evaluate options and investments and how we justify what a good investment is relative to a second preference investment. And the Go Expansion full business case is one such a business case which have followed the new guidelines and which we have brought to this board on previous occasions. And to remind everyone that the business case for Go Expansion has a $2.6 benefit for every dollar invested and bring huge economic benefit in the years to come. And then as a last observation, over the last couple of weeks, we've worked very closely with the City of Toronto, as well as with the TTC, to understand the subway projects and to share views on what the business case and for the Ontario line and what the business case is for the subway, the Scarborough subway extension is, and how collectively, working together across these organizations, we can work together to improve those business cases through how we deliver them and how we procure them. And what's very exciting about this is the really good contributions made by all of the organizations around the table, Infrastructure Ontario, Metrolinx, TTC and City of Toronto, as well as the region of York on the Yonge North subway extension, to think about how we ensure delivery on time through procurement methods that incentivize contractors to deliver on time, and how we achieve for the Ontario line the alignment that works for the city, while also maximizing the benefits from design choices that one can make. And so that process is going really well. In terms of recognition, I'd like to take a few moments to recognize, as we do at our board meetings, some examples of exceptional service and achievement. And before I start with the first one, just ask if Kathy Bordswick will present in this case, a letter of recognition to Roma Malik and her team. And so here, Metrolinx was recently named as one of Canada's greenest employers. And this is the third year in a row that we've received this. And we know sustainable transit system ultimately benefits. You're not going to get away that quickly. We're going to make this very painful. And it's and I commend the planning team and Roma and the team for the great work that you've done, great leadership you've shown on this. As the Sustainability Senior Advisor to you and your team, thank you very, very much. We also want to acknowledge today the contribution of 3 members of our Customer Experience Committee. And I saw Melinda and Daniel pop in. Can the two of you sneak forward, please? And then can I ask Cleo to hand over to you small tokens of our appreciation for the great contributions you've made to our Customer Experience Advisory Committee. And our customer experience activities and plans are better for the contribution you've made. Now, Melinda, have been representing Lakeshore East Corridor since May 2014, and Daniel represents the Barrie Corridor for us since November 2016. Now, Saki Otsubu was unable to join us today, and she served on the committee since May 2018 and represents the Stowell Corridor. And in some future time, we will tie up with her. But thank you very much for sharing your perspectives with us. Much appreciated. And today, I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Marion Mateus. Ms. Mateus have come to our board meetings for more than 10 years, relentlessly. And we want to say thank you for your interest in the board meetings. I've heard false allegations that you may have missed one meeting in the 10 years. I'm sure that's not true.
It's from the first, when the mayors were the were the people
Yeah.
that were Metrolinks, and then it changed over to this. So it was the second meeting then. I must say this is a surprise, and a young North subway is important because Young Street and is extremely overburdened. And I live in the old village of Thornhill. So it's extremely important that you get this going.
We will now try extra hard.
Good.
So our board meetings won't be the same without you. So thank you very much for being here again, and we look forward to seeing you going forward.
Thank you.
As a concluding comment, I just want to commend some of our own Metrolinx women who participated in a Habitat for Humanity Women's Build last week. I won't forget, a friend of mine sent me a note. She's a lawyer with a company that don't do much business with us. She said, would you as an organization be interested in it? And just asking once, just asking one question, I had a stream of women step forward, willing to go and participate in this very, very great, generous activity. Operating, I think Leslie said the most exciting thing she's ever done in her life was operating the nail gun that she used on the day. And things like that says a lot about our organization. And Lena and Sabrina De Nicolantonio pulled a wonderful team of women together that made a big contribution. So just thank you very much to everyone. I now ask Albert Taylor to do the appointment of officers for us.
Thank you, Phil. You have before you a resolution seeking board approval to appoint a few officers of Metrolinx. Matt Clark will be appointed Chief Capital Officer. He's been in the acting position for a short time now. Matthew Getsky will be appointed Acting Chief Planning Officer. Ian Smith is our new Deputy Chief Operating Officer and has just recently joined us, so we welcome him. And Leslie Wu will be taking on the Chief Development Officer portfolio in an acting capacity for transit-oriented development.
Any comments? Okay, so can I have a motion? Thank you. Seconder? Thanks, Robert. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Phil, we're at the CEO report. No, sorry, I passed it. Revenue protection, George is going to speak on this.
Thank you, Chair. You have a report from us, so with your permission, I'll make a few brief comments and then ask for questions. So this initiative is driven out of a couple things. A change in philosophy is one, in which we traditionally were very relaxed about how we worked on our revenue protection streams on our trains. We had analysis that told us we had about a 1.1% evasion rate. That was hard to believe, but seemed to be supported by the numbers of the time. More recent and more robust analysis puts our evasion rate at about 3%, which is a significant financial impact for the company and for the citizens of the province. So we've taken some fairly rigorous steps to correct that. We've upped our inspection teams to make sure that we can inspect more tickets. So that's last year, we inspected approximately 2.5 million tickets. We're going to double that this year. And we're going to drive that evasion rate down to about 2.25% from 3% in the coming year. And we're going to continue that going forward. It's a big example of our diligence. It's a major example of our transition from being a more bureaucratic to a more commercial company. So these things are taking place as we speak. Our new revenue protection officers will hit the streets, or the trains, I should say, officially on June 1st at the end of this month. They're in training now. And we expect a big change in our performance there. And as well, with the change in philosophy, we believe that we'll see an uptick in customer satisfaction. Original philosophy said if we are overly diligent, our customers will be unhappy, but we don't really believe that's true. Our manager in this area has a really nice saying. He says that fair is fair. And we believe, our customers believe that too. And as a personal note, part of my background, we involved what we called high visibility enforcement. And on our system, there is nothing that is more highly visible, than someone dressed like I'm dressed getting a violation ticket. That really exemplifies the fairness that we're trying to portray. So I had a slide deck, but I'm going to skip it because it's really just empty. But open the floor for questions if that's permissible.
Questions? Robert?
Thank you so much. When I read the documents, a few things jumped at me. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that the revenue officers were double duty. They were doing other things, and now you're separating that. So they'll be specifically looking, for fare violations and so forth, checking tickets. The other thing that I saw is that there won't be any judgment that they will around ticketing, right? That they will ticket at the first instance. Yes. And in fact, that goes to the fairness issue because to this point, it was left to the judgment, which puts them in a very difficult position, right? Sure. So that's going to be removed, and that's going to further the fairness. Yes. And then the other thing that I read was that there is that of the fares that give 40% are challenged, yes, which I found quite surprising. So two questions. One is, around the challenging. Why are they challenging? And secondly, is there a way that we can simplify that through self-service?
Yeah. So the reasons that people challenge are wide. There has been a perception that, unlike other forms of transportation, you can say, I forgot, or the dog ate my ticket, or numerous complaints like that. And previously, we would accept that and say, okay, yeah, we understand, we'll back that off. So that philosophy still continues with some of our passengers. It's interesting, I myself imagine walking up to an airline counter and saying, yeah, I forgot my ticket, can I get on? Not going to happen. So there's a social and a learning aspect to our new methods. Previously, about 45% of our interactions with our customers involved one form of warning or another. And we've since gone away from that, as you mentioned. It's very good for our staff. It's good for our customers because there have been times when we've been challenged. You checked my ticket or you gave me a fine because I belong to a minority, because perhaps of my gender. And we're going to eliminate all of that. And then we'll deal with the facts as we should. And sorry, the second question.
Well, the second question was, of those that challenge, is there a way that we can do this in a self-service way so that we're not, so there's not a high cost to these challenges, and yet there's an efficient resolution for the passenger?
Absolutely. So that's the next stage in our plan. If you go down to the main York concourse, there's a line of glass windows at the back, and we have our sort of dispute resolution offices in there. And for the first time ever, we had customers lined up from there across the corridor all the way to McDonald's to dispute their tickets. And that's not sustainable for us. So we're moving to an online platform, an email platform, and we're actually going to reduce our reliance on face-to-face interaction. There'll still be an opportunity to challenge in the traditional sense. As well, our customers who have been fined can go to court and deal with it there. So that'll still be in place, but we are absolutely going to automate our resolution process.
Great, thank you.
Many things go to court?
About 2 or 3%, but it's a significant of our fines. It's of our disputes. I'm sorry. It's a significant effort on our part because we have on staff several prosecutors who go to court and argue our cases. It's rare that they're overturned at court, sometimes for humanitarian reasons, never for factual reasons.
Go ahead, Emily.
Is there any communication plan associated with this, or is it just the increased enforcement will be the communication?
No, there's already been communication out to our passengers that we're changing our philosophy and our standard. We haven't had customer pushback. In fact, it's been the opposite. The people in our customer contact center are reporting more positive reactions to our fare enforcement, our revenue protection than they saw previously.
You talk about hotspots for
Yes.
eating, so can you give a little more color on what kind of places or where they are?
Yeah, there are some areas that are more challenging than others. Some communities that have been more recently served still have some people have the perception that they don't have to pay. One of our strategies is to make sure that we actually target all our trains. There is a case where when our trains are excessively busy, or very busy, it's very difficult for us to check tickets, so we're going to do it nonetheless. Special events are a challenge when we have extremely large passenger volumes. All of those things we have strategies in place to work on.
And there are different ways as well. And what's great about the way we're now focusing it, go back to Robert's question, having a dedicated team, you can do what's called manual gate lines, where you don't, if a train's too busy to go and check on the train, then you actually go on the platform at gates and say, sorry, before you come off the train, can I check your Presto card? Can I check that you've tapped on from where you've come? So there are ways to do manual checking, which, given that our platforms are very narrow, is not great to do. So we're thinking very carefully about that because we don't want to block people's flow through Union Station as well. So it's a combination of all of these things. Must be considered very carefully to make sure you have the right strategy. But we are now doing. There's much more thought and much more strategy and effort and cost going into this. We grew the team by how many heads last year?
By 12 last year.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about approximately 30% more.
Yeah.
Kathy, you had a question?
Yeah, just on the penalty, is there any science behind it, or is it sensitive to the duration or length of the trip, or is there anything around that you can help in terms of it being a?
It's a flat penalty.
Yeah.
It's a flat $100 penalty.
Yeah.
There is no escalation, so repeat evaders don't escalate. These are things that we're going to bring forward probably through Phil and possibly through you as changes in the future where we need an escalation mechanism. We would like to explore whether we can tie the payment of the fines to some sort of social license, like a driver's license or something else. These are things that we can enable better compliance with when we get them in place.
Deterrence.
Or deterrence, exactly. Yeah.
Did you end up collecting all your fines?
No. So we have about. We got about 20% goes into collections. So we don't collect that. We factor those to a collection agency, and we get the money back from them, but we don't get the full value then.
Well, it's not our responsibility. I suspect that our colleagues at the Toronto Transit Commission have the same challenge. Do you know what they're doing?
They've taken some similar steps. They have increased their fare enforcement or revenue protection staff. I have not seen any indication that they're going to a less tolerant method yet. But I think in the future we'll see this moving more in lockstep in the region as well as what we're doing, and we fully intend to lead that rather than follow it.
Anything else? Thank you, George.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, Andre is going to talk on on-time performance.
Good afternoon. Andre Lalone, Vice President, Transit Operations. Want to update you on the on-time performance. I was here in December, and I tabled a memo for you that talked about the current situation and our strategies going forward, so I'll give you a bit of an update. I assume you've gone through the deck, but I'll just go point out a few of the key areas that I'd like you to focus on, and then obviously take some questions from you. So we talked about in the previous memo. We talked about the current situation and the poor performance overall that we had experienced probably since about the middle of last year. At that time, we were targeting a 94% on-time performance, and that we were just specific to the GO train, not the up or the bus, and so that's where a lot of our focus has been. Those services have performed as per expectations. But over the course of that time period, our performance deteriorated such that we needed to take a different strategy. And of course, we had expectations that were clearly set by the CEO in regard to how we did that. So we employed those measures, and of course, the key to that is understanding the causal factors, and part of that is the root cause analysis that we've done. And so I also spoke a bit about the systematic approach that we would take in order to achieve our goals and our targets in that area. And we also let you know about the forecasted gains that we expected to achieve as a result of those actions that we took. And at the time, we said that we would be able to return to the monthly performance, on-time performance of above 94%. And as of March, we were able to achieve that. So we're feeling very optimistic, cautiously so, around the strategies that we've implemented thus far. And of course, it's all about continuous improvement. So we have more to discuss with you as far as that's concerned. I'll just give you just a bit of clarification. When we talk about the 95% target, it is an ambitious target, but we know we will achieve it. We talk about things that are included in that, but we exclude a couple of things. And depending on where you are in the world, they They approach it in different ways, but it's all about what the customer experience. And regardless of what we might exclude, and that could be a trespassing accident where there's a fatality, a police investigation, or a medical emergency, we still measure all of those, and we implement measures to reduce the impact on the customers. Because ultimately the on-time performance is the key driver for customer satisfaction. That 95% also is a rolling average. The importance in that is that's a richer indication of your performance over time, as opposed to maybe what we were doing in years past. We would just roll it up at the end of the year and see what we had, as opposed to now we're looking at ourselves in a 12-month rolling period to give ourselves a better understanding of our performance. So jumping to the next slide, this is just a bit of context for you. Tells a bit of a story here of where we've come. You can see that we've had some fairly disappointing reporting periods there. If I could refer you to July of 2016, I can tell you that that was a pretty tense time. A lot of that was as a result of track closures at Union Station. Union Station is the hub, as you know, and so anything that happens there affects the entire system. Well, we needed to remove those tracks from service in order so we can complete the construction projects, and the implementation of that, obviously we failed, and we made a lot of corrective we implement a lot of corrective measures, but that's really the result of that. And I can tell you we're in a far better place now than we were in 2016 as a result of managing that. If we go a little further ahead, you'll see that there was a decline just before we decided to up the target. There was a decline that we started to experience. We can determine that was also coincidental with the rail traffic control services that we received from CN Rail. They moved their offices to Montreal. I would suggest that perhaps the change management wasn't as good as we would have hoped, and so we experienced a lot of some consequences from that. There were both people and technical, and so we've implemented quite a bit of changes in and around that. And then continuing further on, there's some, I would say, some substantive changes that we all implemented at the time, including the 15-minute service on the lakeshore, which occurred in September of that year. So although we were making changes to improve our performance, we can say that we would have seen a positive benefit during those implementations of those fairly significant service improvements. And then just most recently in January and December, we experienced what was called a polar vortex, and we worked very closely with the entire Metrolinx team, obviously, and we have a PhD, Quentin Chiotti, who's on staff. He's a climate specialist, and the report we've just received from him, because one of the initiatives we're working on is extreme weather resiliency strategies, is that was one of the most extreme weather events in the last 50 years. And what was unique about that event, obviously the prolonged duration of the extreme cold. Now, this is Canada. We expect that. But what was unique about that was the precipitation that also came with it. Normally, we get extreme cold, but we might not get the precipitation. However, we got both this time, and the kind of snow, if I can quote Greg Percy, was insidious in that it was able to get inside a lot of our enclosed areas in the door pockets and otherwise, and it created a lot of problems for us. So, of course, we're going to be working on that to eliminate that from occurring, because it seems, although we talk about these events are 1 in 100 years and 1 in 50 years, they seem to happen quite regularly now. So that's our challenge. So this is, this again, some more context. It gives you a sense of the share of delays. It's a bit of the what that we have, and we are impacted by it. It doesn't really tell you the so what, though. If you look at the fleet maintenance, for example, where causal factors are related to the fleet category, that's only 9%. However, they would factor into a larger portion of the customer service impacts, the delay minutes that goes along with that. So that's important to know, but I just thought I'd share that with you as far as the share of the delays. talk about the methodology as well. And of course, I've been here and I've explained the systematic approaches that we're taking. It's a William Deming approach, plan, do, check, act. We're using lean methodologies in our approaches. We're being very pragmatic, however. We're really focusing on areas where allows us to make better decisions every day on our business, and how we can identify actions that will allow us to continuously improve and measure our performance and benchmark ourselves. So you can see here that we have OBEA rooms, but we call them control rooms. They could be also called war rooms, if you will. They're functionally specific, so every functional area of a business unit has them, but we also have issue-specific control rooms as well. And we measure everything, we list the actions, we know who the owners are, we know what the due dates are, and we actually identify what the return is meant to be, the gain that we will expect by that. And we forecast those improvements going forward. Those control rooms are chaired by myself. So we have, I would say that we have fairly good focus and accountability as far as support to that. And then we also have monthly workshops, which are chaired by our COO and the deputy COO. And those help us really do deep dives into the various functional areas, and there's participation from all the various groups as well. So as far as the so what is concerned, I think this slide helps us understand how the share and the impact of the areas that I described earlier, but it also gives you a sense of what the forecasted gains that we are based on the initiatives that we've implemented. As you can see, rail fleet maintenance, we've some challenge. I'll speak a little bit about what's included in that. But those are the forecasted returns. What I would like you to see, though, is that we have an area that is it's a bit concerning, is that's the others. We're struggling with that in as far as capturing the causal factors and making sure that we can classify them and categorize them properly so that we can take the appropriate action. We've got a project team that's working on that right now, and we know that there's some really important areas that we want to focus on as part of the activities going forward. So here's a bit of, you've gone through this, I know, but this is a bit of some of the activities that we are prioritizing for this particular year. As you know, because we have been, we've been adding a lot more service. Our customers are asking for it, and so we're trying to meet that demand. And that means that we're sweating the assets. And when you sweat the assets, you have to sweat the small stuff. Also, when you add more service, you take away capacity. So that means that any incident will be magnified throughout the entire system. So with that in mind, we're doing a lot of proactive type activities, including improvement programs across the lakeshore, where the majority of our customers travel, and focusing on the infrastructure as well as the signal projects. So Guildwood is an important control location for us, so we'll be focusing on that. There's a lot of legacy design issues that we are going to be dealing with as well. Obviously, we inherited a lot of this infrastructure, so we will be upgrading those, and we expect better reliability. On the fleet side, you won't be surprised that door failures can be a big contributing factor to our delays. And of course, with this winter, we knew that the door seals could not withstand what they'd experienced. So we are going to put a replacement program into there. We're also providing more training to our customer service ambassadors so that if we do encounter a door incident, that they can troubleshoot it quicker and either correct it or cut it out so that we can keep the train moving and keep that fluidity, which is so vital for us as far with respect to the decreased capacity. And then what we also are implementing are SWAT teams. So investigate, do deep dives into some of these issues and recommend solutions as well. So what I think I'll leave you with, and before I take any questions, is that I mean, we're in a new space, definitely, and I believe that we're turning a corner as far as our reliability and the service that we're providing. We are not at the target yet. I will commit to you that we will be at that before the end of fiscal, and at which point I'm sure that Phil will say, okay, well, let's raise the target, and I think that's a good thing to do. That's all about continuous improvement. I said that we are sweating the small stuff. You saw a lot of spikes in the one chart that I gave you, and the space that we're in today, those spikes should be reduced, and we should see hopefully a smoother line there. We're definitely going to be systematic, and we know that weather is going to keep us guessing. So this year we've done quite a bit around winter, but extreme weather is a condition that can affect us anytime. And so we're going to take those same approaches that we've done to winter, including modifications this year to our equipment to make us more resilient, and apply those throughout the year. Extreme heat, for example, is one of the things that will impact our on-time performance, and so we have to get better strategies, better predictive measures so that we can manage that as well. And as I said, we are very optimistic that we will achieve a 95% by the end of this fiscal year, and we'll be ready to improve and go beyond that as well.
Thanks, Andre.
Yep.
Questions?
I'm glad to hear you add extreme heat because it wasn't on there, and I noticed extreme cold and precipitation. But my question is, on the 5 minute, I'm assuming that's the elasticity beyond 5. People get really frustrated. Is that some of the thinking around?
Yeah, they get frustrated. They get frustrated below 5 minutes too. But we measure ourselves. That is an international standard, and some apply it maybe 6 minutes. Okay. We also want to get more accurate.
Long-distance trains typically would have a 10-minute window, and long-distance trains in the UK, people are considered you're on time if you're within 10 minutes of end destination. If you traveled for 2.5 or 3 hours, then 10 minutes. Okay. So you're right. It's an elasticity concept. Yeah.
But to your point, absolutely. I mean, they get very frustrated at that beyond that. And so communications are a big part of how we can manage that better as far as the customer experience is concerned. Justin will probably tell you quite a bit about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Andre. Okay, next up on the customer satisfaction, Ian Smith and Jocelyn Selby.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Ian Smith, and Jessalyn is joining me as well. And Deep's going to join us. Yeah, just in case I say something which is slightly wrong. I've been with the company for 4 weeks now, so if I do get a slight grasp of data wrong, I'm sure I'm going to feel something under the table nudge me. But it's great to be here. I've just a quick bit about myself. 28 years in UK rail. I can't disguise the accent, I'm afraid. But that's 10 years in rail freight, and then the rest in rail passenger. And that's been doing a multitude of jobs. Some highlights within that was working for South West Trains, which is the busiest railway in the UK at Waterloo, looking after train service delivery there, putting in major projects like radio changes on trains, and most recent job was at East Midlands Trains doing safety performance and customer experience as an executive director there. So it's great to be here, and I'm very much thoroughly looking forward to the challenges that we have been given. So moving to customer satisfaction, and if there's any detail about what does CSAT and all these things mean, we can tease those out through Q&A or through the presentation. But it really is, it's a customer satisfaction survey measure. And for myself here, it really does cover the whole gambit of what do people think about using our services. And one of the key areas and the key challenges we have here is how do we make that quite tangible and measurable for ourselves to know how well are we doing and where do we need to improve. And some of those areas there we'll go on to in a moment, but it really is creating the sort of building blocks which are then required for creating the environment that you need to know that are you actually winning with the customer or not. So over the last months, years here, and certainly I've been getting absorbed into it, it's really trying to find the data to drive the changes that you need to do. So you can actually turn some of these, some very tangible things. We've heard about performance and how train running can be very, very tangible. If we get the base wrong, then customer satisfaction is low. But I've heard in conversations we've had earlier today, for example, you can lose customer satisfaction by the way you talk to people, how you interact with the customer, how the customer buys the tickets, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to get better at measuring those and then understanding where we need to get to. I think fundamentally for me, for customer satisfaction from a Metrolinx perspective across all our brands, it really is about being people you can trust, so you have faith in us, because we're moving thousands of people safely every day, and we can't lose focus on that. These are real people with real lives, and we're looking after them. Secondly is be reliable, so we do what we say we're going to do. And then thirdly, I think, is try to be predictable. So if we do get it right, we predictably get it right, and if it's not going well, the predictable responses that we give then also help people navigate some of the trials and tribulations you can have in transport. So quickly just to the next slide to give just an overview here. Now these are the CSAT results, customer satisfaction results, and more detail will come in a moment. So I'll just very quickly just glance over these. Just on the Go Transit, you heard Andre talk about this earlier, and also Phil did, about the numbers. Sometimes percentages can actually mask the scale of change that is going on here, sort of below the waterline in Metrolinx. For me, this is revolutions which are happening here. It's not evolution. So if you just take from 2017 to now, 2017, we ran each week 1,709 services. Today, we're running 2,178. Now, that is a massive, massive change. And that is without multi-million-dollar investment in the kit we've got on the ground. There has been some investment, don't get me wrong, but there's been investment in people as well to get there. But it has meant as an organisation and as an operation where you may have had some slack time to wriggle out of a few problems you may have in the morning peak. Now the guys and girls have to be on the ball right from the start of the day, right to the end, and overnight to keep and maintain that quality. So although absolutely right, you can't allow punctuality, for example, to slip as a measure that Andre was talking about, I just want to give it a little bit of a context about what the drive of change that we have. Now, we have to keep up at that because most customers are not that particularly interested in what we do below the waterline. They're interested in what they receive. And so where we have had challenges with Go has certainly been on how do we blend construction work, particularly at stations, with the service delivery that we want to be giving, on-time performance, as discussed, and also I think communications when things don't go so well as when they do go well are areas we continually need to improve on. Presto, I think there, in terms of the device reliability and areas we work with that, and also perhaps some of the growing pains of transferring with TTC. And Presto, I think fundamentally with Presto is we have got there a highly punctual, highly reliable service. And when we get those right, you see those figures increase accordingly. But just going into some of the gap that we now need to move from where we are now to our 2019 targets, which, as you can see, there's no easy wins in that, either to maintain or improve. I'll hand over to Jessalyn.
Thanks. So on the next slide, you'll see that we do a lot of work to really understand what is driving our customer satisfaction. And I'm going to talk to a few of these points. The first one, obviously, is on-time performance. People are taking our trains and our buses to get to their destination. But we're really trying to really dig into understanding more than that. How many minutes is acceptable? And what's interesting is we're finding that people want on-time performance in the afternoons more than mornings. People don't want to be late for dinner. They're okay being late for meeting, but not so good about being late for dinner. So, putting a little bit more focus on that, making sure we understand, really digging into the details of the statistics around on-time performance and around how we can help with CSAT. Doesn't mean I get to just blame everything on Andre for on-time performance. It's how do we help our customers deal with it. The fact is our trains are not going to be 100% reliable on time. So how do we help our customers get through that? Which leads really to the second point, and that's communications. People just want to know what's going on. This is a significant part of their day. I personally spend over 2 hours a day on GO Transit. So it's a significant part of my week, and I want to know what's going on at all times. To the point where customers are actually really interested in when we have delays due to freight traffic. What does that mean? So what we're doing is working on putting out a lot more information. We're doing a huge activation campaign on our on-the-go alerts right now, trying to get more people subscribed to us on Twitter, onto our Facebook, getting more people to see our feed, our commentary. We're putting out a new robust template shortly. This summer we're going to have more feedback and more content in our emails going out. We're going to have a new look and feel, which is going to be much more engaging for our customers. We're putting out more consistent information, making sure we're aligned in our station announcements as well as our on-the-goes. One of the things we measure really closely is what are the key elements? Is it speed or is it information? Is it consistency? And what they really want is information quickly and then just to keep updating us. I was really pleased to see the most recent monthly report on our communications showed that we've gone up month over month, a 3% increase in how happy they are with the consistency of our information. 3% might not sound like a lot, but that tells me that what we've been doing over the last couple of months is making a difference. Customers are seeing it and they're rating us a little bit higher there. I want to also point out a few things around proactivity around social media. Obviously, our customers are getting more and more wanting to know in the moment. To be honest, if I could tell them before the delays, they would really like to see actually before the delays. So we can't do that all the time, but we are at least being, as soon as we know of something, we're putting things out on social media, giving them the advice. We might not know all the answers, but we can at least tell them a heads up and starting to give them alternate channels. Here's how you could get to your destination on TTC. Here's other options that we can give them. We're also going to pilot. We have traditionally only told people about delays after, I think it's a 10 or 12-minute threshold. We are starting to look at sending more out, but we also don't want to overkill our customers. We don't want to give them so many messages that they stop reading them. So it's finding that sweet spot. I do want to talk a bit about service and capacity as well, because it is our third biggest issue, and that is specifically, I'm going to go to this one, around how much new service we have. Phil highlighted this in the CEO report, how we have added a lot of new service. Adding 10 cars to 12 cars makes a big difference for our customers. Putting on even just 1 or 2 extra stops on a line, all of these things make a difference. We tend to focus on the big whole new trip, but sometimes it's just adding a couple more cars that makes a difference for our customers. The other thing that Andre alluded to earlier was we did take the January incident quite seriously, and that is around service readiness. We all have heard what happened in January. Our customers were not ready for the change that we put in place. They told us very clearly. So we have done a complete overhaul of how we get ready for customers, and it's being led by customer service delivery, because in the end it's about how do we help our customers to be ready? How do we help them to know that instead of going to platform 27 like you always have, we now need you to go to platform 24. We don't tell them the day of. We tell them 3 weeks in advance. We tell them 2 weeks in advance. We work with Mark Childs in the marketing to make sure even the day of, even something as simple as doing it on a Wednesday instead of doing it on a weekend makes a difference to our customers, because on Wednesday I can tell them Tuesday night, this is the change for Wednesday, versus telling people on a Friday what they have to do different Monday. So those little nuanced differences, we're getting really positive feedback from our customers on. The last point I want to say about GO, and then we'll move on to Presto, is helpful and friendly staff. We've been doing a lot of really great things out in our stations, getting our people more training, more tools so they can help our customers, not with just the purchasing of fares, but how do we help with wayfinding? How do we help them to know where to stand on the platforms? How do we help them to be safe? How do we help to remind them to stay back behind that line when they've got young children with them and luggage with them? And a big part of that is our engagement of our employees. We have done a massive amount of work of how to engage our employees to be more owning that customer experience, and it's really come back in spades from our employees that they feel more prepared to help our customers, and the customers are telling us good things on how they feel about our station staff. So if I could turn to Presto. Presto 80 to 81%. We're going to try to bring that up 1% more this year. just to again give some perspectives on numbers, the average number of transactions for Presto in April of 2018 was 1.3 million boardings. That was the average business day. That generated a certain amount of calls to us. By April of 2019, we were averaging 2.4 million boardings. That's a lot of new customers that had to get acquainted with the system. To get all of those customers onboarded and ready to use our service as well as they have, increasing CSAT at the same time was a really amazing feat on all of the teams. So big improvement. As you can see, the new app is going to really help our customers understand how to use Presto more effectively. They like self-serve. They've told us over and over again. They like our ticket vending machines. They like our auto load features. And now they have the app. In the last few months, this shows 328,000, but I actually got the most up-to-date numbers as of last night. We've actually had 402,000 downloads of the application to our customers, which is about 60% on iPhone. And of that, we've had 360,000 loading of funds done self-serve. That means they did not go to a machine. They didn't have to go and use our staff. They did it themselves right there in the moment, which is phenomenal. That's about, I think it was around $15 million worth of loads. With that, we'll go to Up Express. Up Express has done really well in the last year. We've gone and really addressed a number of pain points around their Wi-Fi system. We've addressed a number of pain points in regard to how they actually maneuver around Union Station. We talk a little bit about, in the next slide, of the airport experience itself, how they know about where they can get help, how they can use the self-serve machines. We've had people out there actually in the luggage areas, right out there in the terminals offering help. And again, the feedback from our customers has been very high, and hopefully we can bring that up 1% more next year, or this year, sorry. The last point I just want to make is moving forward, there are 3 key elements to improving CSAT. That is, we have to be actively listening. Using our committees like the Customer Experience Advisory Committee that we heard about earlier today, going out there and talking to customers, using our online surveys, our monthly surveys now. We have to be listening. We have to be doing things based on data, as Ian referred to, not just doing it based on gut feels, but really what does our data tell us our customers want, and then making sure we're actioning them very quickly. Similar to Andre, we have a full control room that tracks a number of action items that we're all doing, and it helps to bring everyone across the organization together in that room to see it, because CSAT is not just me, it's construction, it's on-time performance, it's who handles the fleet cleaning, it's everyone. And so we all come together on a regular basis and make sure we're working on the right things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
2 questions, and welcome, Ian.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, you mentioned 2 very different questions, but you mentioned, Jocelyn, that you're surveying to find out, what time matters to an individual, and you mentioned the dinner hour versus, and I'm sure there's sporting events that would, but what are you going to do with that information? Are you going, and kind of a leading question, are you going to prioritize like things like switch issues to get the people that are going out faster? What are you doing with that information?
So, great question. So certainly Andre is well aware of that information. We have lots of good discussions with him, so he can prioritize when he's doing his maintenance. Obviously, we aim to do most of our maintenance overnight and on the weekends when we have less riders, but there are certain times we have to do things during the day. So earlier in the day, making sure we don't impact the afternoon service. But I would say the bigger issue is how often we communicate with our customers. So the customer it's 4:30 is heading to Union Station, we already know there could potentially be a delay. We want to give them that information faster and earlier so that they can make their decisions. I've been in customer service my whole career, and my biggest thing is letting people make their decision. I don't know what their right decision is. They might want to just go downstairs to Verst and have a drink, or they might want to call an Uber, but I want to give them the information they need to make the decision that's right for them.
Customer satisfaction and customer data, either drawn from experience or through research which is done, does go into the base of building up the timetable. As the timetable gets busier and busier, there are only so many slots you can have in and out of Union at any one time. So you try and balance off what's everybody's need and get those out communicated really, really well. But without that customer feedback, operators will then tend to run trains where it's suitable for the rolling stock and the people, when we've got to make sure we're doing it for the passenger and the customer.
Thank you. Which leads into my second question around data and so forth. You talk a lot about customer satisfaction and your ability to get at that, but how are you getting at that? Because I know that there's a great deal of technology out there that's real time, and in fact, I've even seen what is really old school, where they have buttons, in every place. People are pushing buttons and they're getting real-time information. How are you getting your information, and what are you doing to sort of evolve that?
So I'm going to let Devon take that. She's from our market research area, and the amount of change that she's been implementing over the last year to get into more detail has been very good. But I'll let her respond.
So we're not quite yet at trip satisfaction, but that's really the evolution we want to get to. So as you're able to make those connections between that satisfaction with that actual morning trip versus your evening trip, we'll be able to just add those additional data points to get closer to that. What we've shifted to the last year is essentially monthly, and when I say monthly, it's almost the entire month is open for responses from customers. So the February results we were just talking about, we had about 1,600 responses for that month, and so we're able to get it, but it's still a relationship. It's what my feeling is about Go during that time frame. A particular trip might affect that, and it might influence it, but it's sort of that larger bit. So what we want to get to, and as we get to a sort of greater connection between our sort of possibly our Presto data, but our most recent trip data and more abilities to communicate with customers, that's where we'll get to that very specific trip by trip. Ideally, we'll learn that your expectations might differ perhaps for when you're heading to a Jays game than versus when you're heading into work, and that's where we can start to really build out that data and again make better decisions and prioritize as need be.
Are you using technology to get to that? How are you going to actually
Yes, because if I have to do it manually, I will not be able to do it. We need to get to that point where the technology is there, and there's a lot of opportunity beyond just sort of a traditional email or a CRM. There's a lot of different opportunities. We just need to get those connections built in to do it properly.
But I will say, certainly from a real-time perspective, we do have our social media monitoring, and that is the one thing that I get a report on each morning that tells me what happened yesterday, when it happened, what was the feedback. If there was a Kitchener delay versus a Milton TFC game, we can get the feedback real-time that way. I have to always be a little cautious sometimes with social media, but it certainly gives a sentiment. Yes.
Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I think it's very telling. In terms of Metrolink's three major lines of business, up is certainly targeted the highest. And I'm curious, I know these are cumulative responses that you're getting, but what do people really like about the up experience? And then are we taking some of those individual comments and understanding how we can apply those to our other lines of business and certainly to the expansion that we're proposing? Because, up is relatively new. Wasn't getting great responses early on, which we never understood why, but seems to be very highly sought after by its customers.
Yeah, so I'll take that. So the really what customers were kind of going through with Up is there's an element of just that speed, that feeling of just, I'm right there at the airport, and that ability to kind of, some of the busiest times, for instance, is a Friday evening kind of rush hour. So you're just kind of missing some of that back and forth. So that kind of smooth transition is what people like, and there's an element of, I get there, I get on, I'm there. And so that's trickier as your service becomes not just 25 minutes, it becomes longer. But also what we found is that, so Up, for instance, has really, really strong on-time performance, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But as you start to move away from those kind of foundational elements of the service, you start to see things that are a little bit more picky or a little bit more kind of specific. So we get issues around, so I like when I just have to tap my Presto card, but working with the ticket vending machine is a little bit more complicated. So we see elements on that. We also will see things where just the experience on board is what people really like, that comfort of the seating, that sort of newer train kind of feel to it. All of that comes into play. So a lot of those learnings are going into a lot of the stuff we're doing as we think about future expansion, as we think about future services. So all of that sort of experience and what someone might argue is the fluffier stuff around what it feels like when you enter and when you leave and when you communicate with staff, we know that builds that experience, and it's not always as easily to quantify as it is strictly about something like on-time performance. So there's a lot of different factors, and those are getting applied. I will say that we tend to focus on the pain points as we're trying to improve on it, but absolutely, it's that that larger end-to-end experience that people will tell us they love at the end of the
For
day.
me, it's the real touch points, that predictability and reliability that UP has got.
Yeah.
We've got to maintain that. That's not a selling point. But now you see where we're expanding, like on the Lake Shores, 15-minute service, and what's been discussed on expansion. There is a lot in this about dependability, turn up and go. I know what I'm going to get, and I get it each time. I think it's that boring bit actually as well here of just doing the same thing to a high quality all the time.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? One? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good report.
So Matt, you're up.
Hello again. Okay, so we want to take this opportunity, and very much in line with a brief conversation as part of this morning's agenda, to step through and give an idea of the quantity and the scale of projects that are currently being delivered out on through both our Go Expansion and our Rapid Transit programs, and give an idea of where these projects are within the project life cycle, stepping through from pre-construction, design and procurement all the way through delivery on the ground, and then having a look at some projects that have been coming to completion or have been completed and are already adding benefit to the operating network. So we're going to start with some rapid transit projects. And I've got, I think, 30 projects in 15 minutes, so I'm going to be very fast, I think. And Charles will talk a little bit about how this interrelates with Go Expansion that we talked about earlier as well. So 3 rapid transit projects that are in procurement or the very early stages of delivery. The first one off the rank is Hamilton LRT. It's a 14-kilometre scheme, 17 stops running between McMaster University and Eastgate. It's currently in market with pre-qualified consortium. So we're moving ahead with Hamilton RT, and the image that you can see on the screen is a rendering of the operations, maintenance and storage facility where we've recently closed on the property acquisition. So a key step forward in Hamilton RT delivery. The second rapid transit scheme in these early stages is the Ontario RT, an 18-kilometre scheme, 19 stops linking 2 cities, working through its final stages of the open bid phase, and with, as you can see there, some very early preparatory works underway. Moving further through the process now, further through the procurement and actually into very early delivery, we have the Finch West Lrt. So Finch West Lrt is being delivered under a design, build, finance and maintain contract with Mosaic Transit Group, and we awarded that contract in May 2018. So we're working through design, and as you can see on the screen there, we've started early preparatory activities, including some significant utility relocation works. We started those preparatory works in December 2016, and imminently, within the next weeks, we're looking to start main construction. This scheme's 11 kilometres with 18 stops linking Humber College and Finch West, and it connects TTC services with Go Services, Viva and Zum Transit. So a significant piece of the transit network. Moving onwards into delivery phase. So these are works on the ground now as part of the Go Expansion program of work. So the first one here is Kipling Go Station. So on completion, this will provide a new parking lot, passenger pickup and drop-off areas, a pedestrian bridge linking the bus terminal to the Go train platforms, signalised intersection for completion in 2020. And as you can see here, construction obviously well underway with our partner Ellis Don under an AFP P3 contract. Next project, again, an AFP P3 contract as part of the Go Expansion is Cooksville. Currently at Cooksville you have approximately 1,700 car parking spaces. This significant structure that you can see here will be adding another 800 aiming for completion in 2020. As part of this work, there'll be additional bus bays, additional bus loop, upgrading of the rail platforms, a new station building, a public plaza, and you can see the large parking structure there. So again, a well-advanced piece of work, and again, being delivered by a partner at Ellis Don. This is an interesting piece here, but I'll let Charles speak about how this links in with Go Expansion briefly.
So essentially, if you look at the enabling works, we've got two major priorities. The one is, how do we step up service while we build? I mean, that's the main prize here. We want to increase train service. The second one is, how do we manage risk for the future Go Expansion, the main contract? Now, if you start looking at risk, you're worried about the things that might possibly be unknown. So geotechnical risk, big major utilities. And in this case, we're trying to build a tunnel under 21 lanes of highway traffic. So this is a very tight area. If something goes wrong here, it's got big impacts. Everything is underground, so if you discover boulders or geotechnical areas, it could be a high risk. So on the left side there, you see 3 tracks being squeezed through the current tunnel. That's for the Kitchener Line and Up Express. And we want to build an additional 2 tracks on the side, and this is where the truck is standing, where the team is already starting to build that tunnel. So by the time the main contract comes online, this tunnel will be in place and we can hit the ground running, and that risk is totally removed.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, it's great. So this is a good example of a successful delivery under the AFP model, where we've allowed the contractor to derive the solution, the construction methodology and the design solution, which delivered significant savings against our original cost estimate for this new tunnel, where we'll be using the sequential excavation method. And we recently tested this method in Germany. So we carried out trials of this method in Germany to give ourselves and our experts confidence that this methodology will be successful. Obviously, we're tunneling under an extremely sensitive piece of infrastructure, a huge amount of monitoring ongoing, and has been ongoing for some time in this area. So a very interesting piece of work, driving a second tunnel underneath a busy highway junction. Milliken Go Station is one of 3 stations, Milliken, Unionville and Agincourt, being delivered as part of our Stouffville Corridor AFP contract, which also includes grade separation of Steeles Avenue. So we're looking for completion here in 2021. Fairly minor works at this station, but overall this P3, which is on the ground now and progressing well, delivers significant benefits on the Stouffville corridor. Also on the Stouffville corridor, being delivered in a different way, being delivered under a DBB as one of our non-AFP works, as we call it, is double tracking of the Stouffville line, which is delivering 18 kilometres of new twin line of track through this corridor. 90% of the second line track has been laid between Shepherd Avenue and Steeles Avenue. And this is basically double tracking a single line which was originally constructed in 1871, I'm confidently assured. Apparently when Canada's first Prime Minister, I've got notes here obviously, Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, was still in office. So there you go.
And something else about that line, which I also got from the notes that was given to me.
Yeah.
That line was built before 5 of the provinces were actually incorporated into Canada. The line preceded the incorporation of some of the provinces.
Nice wide right-of-way.
Yeah. It's huge.
So this fits squarely into one of those projects that Charles was just talking about, being delivered to increase resilience, increase capacity, and de-risk the encore.
And what we discussed, mentioned to you today about what we want to do with the Stouffville line, creating a U, mirroring the line 1U around Toronto, and potentially running services that could run all the way to the airport from the east to the west. The double tracking is really crucial, as well as those investments in stations. So, it feels like when you look at the early works, it should feel like building blocks we're putting in place, and that's exactly what it is for the expansion services that we'll deliver in Encore.
So on the same theme, still on the Go Expansion theme, we've got Bramley Station here, again in Kitchener. Forecast for completion in 2021. New accessible pedestrian tunnel, new station facilities, and a new parking garage. Not a very clear photograph here, but the structure that you can see, the concrete structure you can see in the foreground is the pedestrian tunnel that I just spoke about that got jacked into position under a weekend closure of the line in September last year. It was a very successful piece of work for the team. The last one on this theme is the Bloomington Go Station, which is a new station. So due for completion in 2020. It's going to be a fully accessible station targeting LEED Gold, so that's leadership in, so if I get this right, environmental, energy, yeah, and design. Okay, so as you can see here again, well underway, 12-car platform, 760 car parking spaces within the structure that you can see coming together there, and 238 surface car parking spaces.
Matt, just dwell on that slide somewhat. So when we met with the CEOs of the construction companies on Friday, we told them about the slide deck. And clearly, sorry, can we step back a slide? We told them about the purpose of the slide deck is to show how much we get done as an organization. But I also said to the CEOs, looking at some of these slides fills me with shame. Yeah? And look at that slide. Look at that work site. Look at the safety on that work site. It's horrendous. Look, there's power equipment that's lying around, tripping hazards of blue lines there. There's a ditch there where someone can fall into, and there's no protection for someone to work at. There are people, the person working on the far right-hand side of the picture has got no gloves on. Yeah, it's got eye protection on. So you can take so many of the photos we see of work they do, and I say this really openly and honestly, this is what worries me about how experienced people can look at these slides. Well, if you haven't got enough experience, you think, oh, lots of activity, that all looks good. When you look at that very carefully, it's horrifying how inappropriately safety on these sites are being managed. And so this is why when we talked to you earlier today about SHALT and the importance of getting CEOs of these companies together, we've got a huge campaign. And what we will be doing as Metrolinx is we'll be changing the rules. So we'll insist that companies have life-saving rules. We'll insist that they have near-miss reporting and near-miss action plans. And we have to do better. We just have to do better. It's just atrocious. I say that in an open session, and I say there's a very intense dislike for those types of pictures.
I will say, it'd be interesting to know when this photo was taken. By the state of construction and the fact there's a bloke wearing a T-shirt, it doesn't feel like it was any time fairly recently. So, this project was put under an improvement plan with the contractor, and I went out there myself with the chief executive to have a look around after a site visit I had there, and I went around with John Grafreda from Canadian, and we had a very productive conversation, and then we put it into an improvement.
And we've strengthened the team of our own safety inspectors that go to site, and we're educating them and giving them the tools, the wherewithal to talk to these construction companies and to stop the work. If there's something unsafe, say, just stop working over here till you've made the area safe. And getting our vice presidents and our directors to be on site and do that is now part of what Matt is rolling out actively.
Right.
I seem to recall as well, Phil, that we've built into our contract award requirements a criterion that cites their safety training and records.
Absolutely.
Very important as well.
Absolutely. So if an organization has a poor LTIFR or lost time injury frequency rate record, they can lose points in the contract award up to 15%, where previously 100% of the percentage points was for financial performance. 15% of the performance is now weighted on safety KPIs, which will change how organizations behave.
It's a good thing.
Okay, so this is a Union Station bus terminal. So what was once a parking lot opposite Scotiabank Arena will soon be the CIBC Square, which will house the new Union Station bus terminal, which will be double the size of the old bus terminal at that location. Hugely improved access, obviously, to Union Station, TTC, Via Rail, and Up Express services. So significantly progressed. Looking at readiness reviews now for how we're going to bring this new bus station into use. And it's a joint project between Metrolinx, Ivanhoe, Cambridge, and Hines. Doesn't show too much, this one, does it? I might move on. Confederation Go Station, not particularly exciting slide. But the next ones are. So now we're going to move on to, by far, the largest project under construction as part of our portfolio, which is Eglinton Crosstown. Eglinton Crosstown is being delivered by Crosslink Transit Solutions. We're under DBFM again, design, build, finance and maintain contract. It's on time and on budget and driving towards completion in September 2021. It's a 19-kilometre scheme, 10 kilometres of in tunnel and the rest above ground, with 15 underground stations and 10 surface stations. So we'll have a look at some of those station constructions and a little bit of the track construction now. First one is Keelsdale Station. One interesting fact here from the notes, this is a cut and cover station, and there's 2,300 metres squared, which is equivalent to 5 basketball courts of timber decking over the top of the station to allow traffic flow above the construction that's currently progressing at this location. Probably the most impressive photo in the deck. This is a layered station, so the majority of the stations are being delivered using a cut and cover methodology. This is one of the 3, which is Avenue, Oakwood and Laird, being constructed using a sequential excavation method. So this photo is quite good because you can just see the sort of the different stages of a sequential excavation method as the photo moves backward in perspective. So mining here started in mid-2017 and has been progressing 24/7 since then. This is Mount Dennis Station. So Mount Dennis is critical. It connects the Go Transit network, Up Express, TTC, bus terminal, come together here as part of the Eglinton Crosstown. As you can see here, we've got finishing trades well underway, so it's the furthest progressed of the stations being constructed under Eglinton Crosstown, and it's the westernmost station for Eglinton Crosstown as well. Track work. So track installation work is significantly, not significantly complete, but well underway. There's dual track for 19 kilometres, plus 9 kilometres of track within yards and storage facilities and other areas. 14.6 kilometres of track installed to date, the majority of it at storage facilities and yards, but the picture you can see here is an installation of track over the elevated guideway adjacent to Mount Dennis Station.
Can I just go back to your Mount Dennis?
That one.
The reference to UP and our earlier discussion, I think maybe at the last meeting, about challenges with UP capacity. Is this going to add to that?
It sure is.
Yeah.
And so that's our discussion earlier this morning about what our plans are for the future is so important.
Yeah.
That we need a value proposition that offers more capacity into Pearson.
Exactly.
And what this is where what Leslie and her team and Mathieu and his team now are doing to figure out what is the network effect of how we tie different parts of the city together. If you think of Eglinton, this would be another feeder line straight into that part of the city. Which is, I think Michael made the comments earlier today about where are the growth zones, and around the airport is a huge growth zone. And so we say airport, but it's airport and environment, and a lot of ridership would go to that location. We'll have to think very carefully about what the Up Express value proposition remains for Blue and Western, and if we start to link in Mount Dennis, and do we have a different fleet? Do we have a different operation? And those are the options we're looking at and we'll be bringing to board.
Okay, so the last slide second to last slide for Eglinton, actually, we have vehicles, but this is the maintenance and storage facility located at Eglinton Avenue and Black Creek Drive. It's 20,000 square metres of buildings, which is equivalent to 4 football fields, NFL football fields. And obviously, maintenance and storage facility is there to house, maintain, inspect the light rail vehicles that we're currently bringing onto site. Interesting point here, this is going to be part of the Open Door Toronto event, which is being rolled out on Saturday, the 25th of May. So the public will get a chance to come and see this site. It's substantially complete. It's actually been substantially complete since October 2018. And this is the last slide for Eglinton. So this is obviously the light rail vehicles moving to site. So our first light rail vehicle turned up from Bombardier at the MSF site at Black Creek on January the 7th this year. By February the 16th, we have now 6 LRVs on site of a fleet of 76 ultimately to deliver the operations on Eglinton Crosstown. And they're being tested and they've been certified, yes.
And their own power.
And how is that against the planned schedule? Is that on schedule, like just getting a sense?
It's on schedule to match substantial completion requirements, yeah.
Yeah, on schedule for substantial completion, but this was 4.5 weeks later than target. Go back a year, or go back 15 months, and they were about 2 years behind target.
Yeah, that's great. So it's caught up. It's fantastic.
Where are they constructed?
Several places, really, but mostly Kingston.
Yeah, they're assembled in Kingston.
Assembly, yeah. But some of the structures come from Mexico, and some of it come from I'll tell you later. I can't remember.
But it is the Kingston is the assembly.
Kingston is the assembly point, yes.
So they've got that working.
Yes.
So now we're moving into substantially complete or complete work, so it's starting to deliver benefits within the network. So this is the York Viva Next Bus Rapid Transit, funded by Metrolinx in collaboration with the York Region Rapid Transit Corporation. It's a $1.755 billion scheme with a route length of 34.6 kilometres and 43 stations. So it's being opened segmentally as it's completed. The first section was opened in 2013, and completed routes are already showing significant benefits, including savings to route journey times of up to 35% in some areas. Through some complete area, Renforth Transitway Station completed in 2017 as part of the Mississauga Transitway, which was an 18-kilometre east-to-west bus corridor with 12 new stations and serviced by 500 to 600 buses daily. Kitchener Go facility, another LEED Gold certified facility, which was completed in 2018, housing rail crews and storage and maintenance for 33 buses with 10 bus routes running out of this facility. Whitby Rail Maintenance Facility, which came into operation last year. So obviously providing space for mechanical maintenance body repair. Basically this has really facilitated a lot of the upgrade to the network and a lot of the increased service and expansions that we're going through at the moment. Interesting fact here, 76 acres, which is 2/3 the size of the Vatican. Some of these I'm just reading now. So, so by the numbers, so 13 on-site storage bays, preventative maintenance bays, canopy tracks for storage, 12 bays for coach repair. So a huge facility for us, and a state-of-the-art facility which is assisting our expansion of the network. Pickering Pedestrian Bridge, which was completed last September, and we actually won an Urban Design Award for Pickering, which Peter Zook collected for us on, Peter Zook and some of the team collected for us on Monday night. So that was a...
It's were built faster than we managed to get that bridge.
we were concentrating on the positives there.
That's right. That's right.
So I got some good numbers on that as well. So it crosses 18 lanes of roadway. This is why it took so long. It crossed 18 lanes of roadway, 5 tracks, and crossing the busiest, one of the busiest highways in North America. So you can see the LED light system there, which allows for.
Which is really cool.
It is cool.
It does look neat at night.
Give it that.
I didn't realize it was the longest enclosed either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty neat.
And there's a bunch of other architectural features that apparently it's
very good.
it's been featured in architectural magazines and stuff.
Yeah, I think the CalZip was one of those things, wasn't it? The lightweight
That's
wrapping
right,
material. CalZip is the first time it's been used in this context as well.
Please
so-
make note, it's right side up.
Right side.
Oshawa Go Station, again, completed in 2018. Another LEED award for sustainability. So in partnership with Via Rail, won an Urban Design Award in June 2018. That's probably enough on that one. And Gilwood Go Station. Starting to feel repetitive now. So complete in 2018, November 30th, 2018. But was actually opened in June the 4th, 2018. LEED Silver certification.
Took forever.
Yeah. Gilwood presents another interesting learning point, and Jamie and Matt and myself talked about it. Gilwood took a lot of effort to complete, and it completed, and it's a fantastic facility now. We never opened it properly. We never had an event around it. We never thanked the communities around it. We never shared with the communities what we're doing. We didn't have a ribbon cutting. Granted, it fell around the time of elections and was therefore a difficult time to do stuff. But I do think one of the reasons why we've put this presentation together, and also for the public session, but also have these presentations in a different narrative out to other events, is that there's a lot happening, and we are focused on delivering stuff, and we don't often stop to celebrate stuff. And I think even though we're going through these slide by slide, it's quite powerful to look at how much is happening.
Well, and if it's an excuse for the Gilwood station, because I mean, you'd hear people, because you couldn't get off certain cars and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just went on and on and on and on, and you'd hear people mutter whenever it would happen.
Yes.
So I mean, if there's an excuse, I think we should still try to do something with Gilwood.
Jamie's
invite
busy.
everybody on that line that went through all that hassle to come to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got an event plan with the, just confirming dates with the minister's office.
Oh, it'd be great,
Coming up.
yeah.
We didn't call it the community barbecue. So
Yeah.
everyone coming.
Yeah, good idea.
This is the other side to what we do, I guess. So obviously we've got a huge program of expansion. This is what we do to keep the network running and to keep the net and to renew our assets as they reach the end of their life. So this slide shows the Humber River Bridge, but we actually restored 6 bridges between Mimico and Exhibition last year. That required 9 weekend closures of the network. We think this was an exemplary partnership between CPG, operations, marketing, communications, and a very, very well-managed piece of work, which we were very pleased with. The Humber River Bridge, I think it's got some statistics there, 7,000 tonnes and 130 years old. So very well-delivered piece of work and essential to keep the network operating. And we've taken a lot of lessons from this as well in how we're going to deliver our work going forward as far as disruptive possessions and closures of the network are concerned, and how we carry out readiness reviews. But again, an essential part of what we're doing within the Capital Projects Group with operations. And finally, not for me to talk about too much, but Mimico Go Station, which is part of the TOD portfolio moving forward.
Questions?
I was just going to say, I mean, and I know, you've been out speaking about some of this stuff, and to the extent that we're able to, I know there's obviously limitations and challenges of making videos and advertising and everything else, but I really think we need to try to figure out how to step that up. So that people are seeing finished buildings, shovels in ground.
Yeah.
He's right, if you're not in that area, I mean, if you're in that area, you're going crazy because the construction's driving you crazy, but if you're not, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Something Jamie's going to weigh. Jamie, you want to perhaps talk about all of the visits that's happening to Eglinton now, which is helping with media coverage and community coverage to see the extent of the build and the progress.
Yes, we're doing, we've got a tremendous amount of, lots of activities going on there. So we've got an event taking place on Friday with the Parliamentary Assistant Minister, where we're looking at vehicles out at the Crosstown. We've got a upcoming event with the media at Eglinton Station. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff. We had the presentation from Crosslinks here a couple of board meetings ago where we talked about the innovative energy engineering taking place. So we're looking at real opportunities to do those types of events. And we've just done a real interesting social media campaign on the Crosstown. So we've gone by every station. So lots of the kind of facts that Matt's been talking about here, but as each station goes through. And we found that the engagement of that is typically about 2 or 3 times what we would typically get on a social media platform. That we're putting out some fantastic. It's all about the progress and things like that.
So you can't do enough of it.
Yeah, totally get that.
Yeah.
And Jamie's restructuring his team and embedding, I think it's fair to say, working hard with the project delivery teams to raise their awareness of the importance of celebrating these successes and getting the information to Jamie's team so that we can start communicating a lot more. They tend to be very head down and just getting the job done, and they forget all the good stuff they've just they completed last week, I think.
So it is very impressive to see all these projects come together, but as you were having sort of an impression of lack of safety on the sites that's visible in the photographs, I was also having an impression from a design perspective of a lack of design excellence on most of the projects. When there's the Durham project that has won awards, and anyone driving by, it's an adornment to the community. It's something that people take pride in. And if I think of buildings in our transit past, like the Witchwood Barns or other buildings of transit, there was something civic about them. Even the bridge, the Bloor Street Viaduct, right? So one concern I'm having is our approach. Like, it looks like we've been really scoring well in LEED and trying to do sustainable things. You saw a beautiful green roof on the Eglinton project, but are we somehow not, through the DBFO process that we're using, are we not integrating enough architectural and urban design excellence and placemaking into the projects? It just, I went to the Whitby opening. It was very exciting to be there with the community. Exciting for me. My father worked in a facility like that for CP for most of his life. But it struck me that it was slightly value engineered, and that there wasn't a sense of maybe the urban planning that could have gone into that facility. So I'm just wondering, as we move forward and we want to make design excellence more of a criteria, do we need to think a little bit about how we modify our this process that we're using? Otherwise, we will end up with utilitarian buildings, and they'll get all built, but the quality of them may not last well over time. And
do you know Marianne McKenna?
Well, Mathieu and Leslie will both comment. Yeah.
Very good point.
Well, first, I think there's a lot of the design, maybe you don't see it on the pictures like that, but a lot of it is also on the customer-facing part. So, for example, in these stations, a lot of the quality of the design is actually bringing a lot of light, a lot of that kind of user-oriented comfort. So maybe it's not as spectacular as the Pickering Pedestrian Bridge, but I think that is the kind of design that we're looking into to provide that kind of really good sensory experience for all the customers. I think on the public realm, I agree. That's always been a little bit of a challenge with the dominant park and ride model, which is really difficult to integrate in a more diversified public realm. But I think as we work on the station access plans and work to diversify options to get to the stations, I think there will be more opportunities to really work on the different aspects of public realm so that it's functional, but for a lot of different kinds of users, and has a bit more design to it. And I think, Leslie will probably add on the TOD part. I think that TOD approach will be a really great opportunity also to push these principles forward.
Go ahead,
Maybe the only thing I would add is many of the projects that you're seeing coming to reality actually predate the 2013 Design Excellence Initiative. So these are legacy projects. I would say Eglinton Crosstown was really the first big project where we really spent a lot of time. And you'll notice, I mean, it's a little premature because it's hard to see, but there is a language, a design language that it threads throughout Eglinton. And you'll see all the projects that come subsequently have been, had a devoted attention to it. But many of those, like even Guildwood, it was commissioned way before we, and I think the team did some work to try and introduce pieces, but it was sort of partway.
I flagged this because, you know, this whole investment in the transit system for Toronto is really about positioning Toronto as a global center for investment. Yeah. And, you know, when I was in London 2 years ago at King's Cross, and, you know, the investment there is at an international level and of international quality and character. And I'm just want to ensure or think that it's important for this board to ensure that as we're moving forward with this major investment over the next number of years, that the result will be that Toronto is at that level of quality and execution. Otherwise, the investment may not actually pay off in terms of the economic investment into the region and people perceiving the region as you know, a really great place to grow.
Absolutely right. And King's Cross was my station on my route, and 90% of the philosophy around King's Cross was actually about the regeneration of that part of Camden, and all of the area around King's Cross, which have subsequently, you see now much development and
attracted the global headquarters for Google and others.
Exactly.
And I think these type of transit investments need to do that.
And this is the section that we're going to go into after the break on transit-oriented development and why that is such a huge part of how we head on.
Mr. Chair, one of the things we might want to do at a future board meeting is just have an update on the whole new design process, because it's been quite a journey, I think, for the organization to actually try and embed it from the very beginning, as Marianne used to push us all the time on it. And I wouldn't mind myself, too, just hearing the latest on what's happened on it, because I think there's been a lot of really good progress, and it'd be good to see if we've made enough progress.
Yeah. And we can weave that into Leslie's section, and Matthew can talk to that then as well. Yeah. Very good.
Mr. Chair, just one final comment. Sometimes we're always acting and responding to construction schedules and noise and stopping traffic, but you know, there are certain projects like the Eglinton Crosstown maintenance facility that was actually well thought of. Not only is it required for our transit link, but it was built on a site, and this is the former Kodak lands. The community was quite upset when Kodak closed down 15 years ago. There was a lot of angst in the community about what's going to happen with this 40-acre site. And nothing really happened there for some period of time until this facility was announced. Well, I don't think we've made up the 4,000 jobs that were lost, but I think we came pretty close. And so, you know, we tend to lose sight of some of the economic benefits in the community building that we do as part of our transit building. So I can certainly tell you that although it's not a sexy use, I think the community appreciates the jobs, and it's made use of a lot of the existing buildings that were on site. So I just wanted to raise that, Mr. Chair, that I think that was a job well done.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions of Matt? Okay, we're going to take a break, and that ends our public session. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll take a 15-minute break and come back together at 3 o'clock.